absence. Perceived, when she grips the steering wheel and she begins to sense. She doesn't say anything, and we don't either. Gee, now I know I'm getting into a conflict episode. The felt conflict was the high energy with which she struck the Volkswagen 4 times, and that's also part of the manifest conflict. And now, the conflict reduction here is dominance, where she beats up the women, so to speak. And therefore, there is no conflict aftermath because she's not going to come back and engage in any relationship with those two people. And that scene sits exactly like it does and it's never repeated in the rest of the film, but it shows a part of her personality. I meant to cue you on the word that she used. Do you remember the word she spoke while holding on to the steering wheel?
Echoey up here.
Yeah, okay, yes, I'm going to talk to Erin. Was it resounding?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I could hear some of it down here. We'll find out what's going on. She used the word Towanda, Towanda, which is her emerging alternate personality. Towanda, Evelyn as Towanda is an aggressive woman. Notice she said, when she's speaking to Ninny Threadgood, that I never knew I could get mad, or something to that effect, because it's not polite in Southern society for a woman to express herself that way. So she had always repressed those kinds of feelings. Did you have a comment? No? Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so we took a look at different latent conflict. Then you can, Erin, let's get a good view of this figure. I designed this figure the way it shows deliberately to look like a thermostat. That's what it's trying to do with the numbers, and the text says that, so it's clear. And in the center, at around between 65 and 75 degrees, we have the level of conflict that we perceive as functional for the organization. So as the thermostats control the heat and the cooling of a room, nothing is going to change until something shifts. So if conflict stays steady on, then there's no reason for a manager to take any action. When conflict becomes dysfunctionally high, which is, I arbitrarily pick 75 degrees, now it's too hot. Now the group is too hot and overtaxed by what's going on. We recommend decreasing the conflict. Now that's not too hard to see. And if you think of conflict resolution, I'm using the phrase deliberately, then that's what that is targeted at doing. A different twist comes on this side where the conflict is dysfunctionally low. It is, in fact, the figure in your book might not look exactly like this because this is a recent revision. It may have somewhat different term, but it has the same exact meaning. When the conflict is dysfunctionally low, the model suggests in conflict management to increase the conflict so that you bring it back up to a more normal level. Now you may say you're crazy to think about deliberately increasing conflict, but if you're in a student group, you're in a class and you come together to get a project started, and everybody just sort of sits there without coming forward with any ideas, then you might be encouraged, or this encourages you to increase conflict within the group so that you can get discussion about the issues that you're supposed to work on. All right. So let's go to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Oh, Erin, we were getting echo in here. Let me go talk to him and see what we... Okay, I'm going to want to know whether the feedback occurs again. Aaron knows about it. He's going to do magic stuff. So we obviously should have a more steady on sound. You may wonder why I use VHS tapes as much as I do. They're much easier to work with than a DVD. Believe it or not, DVD is the more advanced, and unless the film scene starts square on the chapter, you have to fiddle around with a DVD, even though I own several hundred of them. Okay, this is a classic film. This is considered one of the top 100 films, U.S. films. It goes back a few weeks. It's 1969, and that's before some of you were born, I think. It's an absolutely superb film. If you have never seen this, this one is a keeper. And when you get finished with classes, rent it or buy it, however you want to do it. It has Burt Bacharach's Oscar-winning song, "Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head." And it's the story of these two train robbers, Butch Cassidy and Sundance. And Sundance is new. Sundance, Robert Redford, Butch Cassidy as Paul Newman. Sundance is kind of new to this particular gang. And it's the Hole in the Wall gang, which is named after a town in Wyoming. And I have not been to it, but I know where it is. It's called Hole in the Wall, Wyoming. The film was, the terrain you're going to see is New Mexico, because it was filmed I think in the Jemez area, and you may even recognize some of it if you're familiar with the stuff in northern New Mexico, but this was done here in the 1960s. Okay, now Butch is the leader of the gang, and they've been away for an extended time, looking at banks to rob. Butch's policy is to rob banks because you know the money is in there. He's going to actually say that. But while he was gone from the gang, another person emerged as a leader. And you'll see who that is in a moment. And just so that you know the names as they come along, Harvey Logan is played by Ted Cassidy. Ted Cassidy was Lurch in the TV series, whatever that TV series was. Addams Family. Yeah, the Addams Family TV series. Believe it or not, I used to watch that and I enjoyed it. So let's see how this plays out as another example of a conflict episode. Now it's going to start with the two of them riding across the prairie, I guess it's the prairie or something, and going to the gang's hideout. And please think of whether they know that they're going to get into a conflict episode. I'm going to do this a little differently from the way I normally do it. Was there a positive result from this conflict episode? What was it?
That he had a good idea and that nobody died.
Okay, good, that nobody died. And he discovered the idea. That's what happens at the end. He said, Harvey thought of that? As if it was not obvious that if you rob the train in both directions, and that's what they do. And by the way, the sequence coming up with of the train robbery is unbelievably hysterical. Because the agent who's inside the money car is a really strange fellow who doesn't want to open the door and all that kind of stuff, but that's an aside. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. And at what point did Butch sense that conflict was going to occur? Can you recall a specific moment, and maybe something he did, a mannerism and the like? No?
When they were riding the horse through the canyon, conflict could have occurred there, because there was that scout on top of the rock that he raised his hands like a signal.
Well, the scout on the top of the rock is a lookout for the gang, and so on. When they're riding across the prairie, did it appear that he thought he was going to enter a conflict episode? No, it's a beautiful day for a ride. He thinks he's coming home. He's going to meet with his people and talk about what they're going to do next. Now, when he rode up and News Carver was saddling his horse and tying up his saddle blanket, that was the moment at which he sensed that something had changed or something was wrong. "What are you doing, News?" And News says, "Nothing, Butch," and has a peculiar look in his face. And this is the way conflict episodes, the scene is perfect, in my view, for showing conflict episode because it has this sequence of some moment is the definition of when you perceive the conflict is starting to unfold. Was there any felt conflict in this episode? Big time. He kicks what's his name in the groin and then says, somebody better get the fight started, and deceives him again and turns around and punches him out. That is the felt side of conflict in the manifest conflict. The fight itself is the manifest conflict. And then, what method of conflict reduction did he use? It's force and dominance. And I'm looking for, well, they're a little bit earlier in the chapter. I just can't see it at the moment. But it is overwhelming the opponent. And then likely there is no conflict aftermath. Harvey, I don't remember that he appears later in the film, and I don't know if any of you know better, but somebody last semester told me, yes, he has a very small role later, and I just can't remember where it is. So I'm going to vote that there is no conflict aftermath because Harvey Logan does not play an important role from this point on. Okay, I started coughing, so I want us to take a break now so I can get some water and see if I can clear this. It's still hanging on. And we'll come back, and I want you to do the conflict orientations exercise, and we can discuss those results.